All right. The widgets on the taskbar. I like them, generally speaking.
The
But
widgets on
the
the
little
task.
widgets, like the little
Oh,
thing
I
that
see.
tell you what.
Yeah.
They're a little dystopian this week, I think, because it's just rotating between heat wave, polluted air, stocks like in the deep, deep, deep red. It just feels like I'm playing The Sims, and like you know how you read those headlines going across. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a little
Right.
yeah. Here we are. It's last day of Internet Explorer, Paul Thurrott. Well, I mean, I think
I think for most of us, the last day of Internet Explorer was about 8 years ago,
yeah. I mean,
10 years ago.
symbolically is where we're at.
And it's also, there's an asterisk on it because
Hmm.
Internet Explorer 11 is still supported in, like that extended support version of Windows 7. I think it's still supported in Windows 8.1 because there's no Edge, obviously.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I had to go back and I wrote a little thing about this yesterday. I was trying to think I don't remember when the last time I actually actively used Internet Explorer. I was
Hmm.
pretty good friends with Dean Hamachovich when he was running the IE team, and he used to try to convince me to run whatever, 7, 8, 9, I don't know what versions. But, Firefox happened, and then Chrome happened, and I think that
Hmm.
was kind of the end of that for most people. And I think, Internet Explorer at one point had over like 80% usage share. Like it was dominant in a
Hmm.
way that like Windows was dominant. And maybe that's not coincidental, but well, maybe it is slightly coincidental because Internet Explorer back then was better than Netscape Navigator. I
Yep.
mean, it wasn't always, but by version 3 it was for certainly. And I think they won, there was some little antitrust thing you may have heard of that
A
was
little.
related to this, but yeah, but to be fair to Microsoft, for all the crappy things they did with it, they also made it functionally superior.
Hmm. They also made it
And then
freer.
they also, right. Yeah, there were various Microsoft innovations. Um, but that for reasons that are better left to history. I mean, that all changed. IE6 happened, and then 6 years went by, or whatever it was, and nothing happened with IE. And that's how Firefox and then Chrome
Hmm.
came to be and came to dominate in their respective ways. And I think IE is a distant memory for most people. It's the way
Yeah.
we used to browse the web when we still had that modem sound and
Hmm.
the internet icon on the Windows 95 desktop. And I don't know,
Yep.
like so many things, they had some good ideas.
Yeah. And then
They didn't.
yeah. And then they just kind of meh. Like,
I feel like it's unfortunate to say, but true, that Internet Explorer's greatest legacy is that it is to date the one major exception to that rule of defaults,
hmm.
where
Yep.
like you said, I think it being the default in the beginning really helped it. But it is astonishing that normal people today, the first thing they do is install Chrome on a
Hmm.
Windows PC. It's so bad of a problem, it has dogged Microsoft Edge, which is a much better browser or more modern browser or whatever. That's astonishing. It really threw a wrench into what was a widely held belief about how things worked. And I think that tells you how far it fell. It had to be that bad
I thought you were going to
for
take
that.
it a slightly different direction. It is also a the pillar, the beacon of how government antitrust can actually be effective. I mean, if you think about it, like
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
one of it's not one of the few, but it's definitely probably the premier case of like the government came in, and the EU specifically said, "Hey, you're
Well,
abusing this. You got to go through this. We're going to make a market out of it." And here we are.
yeah, it's interesting because both the US and the EU had their own mark on that kind of thing. Like in the United States, among the concessions that Microsoft made as it worked toward a settlement was that PC makers were allowed to put another browser on their computers and make that the default.
Hmm.
And there was this notion that they didn't do this with the browser per se, but remember also there was that folder on Windows 95's desktop that had other internet services in it, like CompuServe and AOL at the time.
Yep.
And it's the same sort of choice-based offering that the EU eventually made formal for browsers, and actually also for, if I'm not mistaken, media players.
Hmm.
I think. Well, maybe there wasn't a ballot for media players, but there was a version without media players. and messenger apps and things like that. But yeah, I don't know, it's a weird legacy.
Yeah.
It's also weird to look back at you if you look at the stuff that like Google and Apple are doing just around app stores and how horrible their fee structure is and how they're abusing developers and users and customers or partners rather. And then you compare it to like, we just put the browser in the OS. It's like everyone puts the browser in the OS like today. I mean, it's like it seems so innocuous by comparison, but you have to remember how awful Microsoft was. I mean, Microsoft ruined Windows by integrating IE so deeply into it that it could not be removed, forever sacrificing reliability to harm a competitor that may or may not have one day had the next platform. You know, they were like killing the baby in the crib.
Oh God.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
But also stabbing Windows in the eye at the same time to make it happen. Like it's crazy, like how that company behaved. Like it's again, it seems quaint today, but you have to understand the competitive landscape of the day. Crazy.
On the other end of the pendulum is Microsoft released the first ARM64 version of Visual Studio, so everybody can do all their compiling on their Surface Pro.
So I have a story about this. I was very by the way, we should be upfront. Like on the one hand, ARM is a dumpster fire on Windows. On the other, we should just acknowledge Microsoft has actually very quickly all of a sudden started updating stuff to ARM, right? Media Player, Notepad, the Windows, the Microsoft Store, which is everything. Most people were like, wait, that wasn't a native ARM component. Project Volterra was announced at Build. They also announced at Build that they were bringing .NET, the .NET framework. This is the new version 4.81 that's going to be ARM native. This is the old legacy .NET framework, Visual C++, and then of course Visual Studio. So like you said, so yesterday, Microsoft announced that the first pre-release build of this new coming version of Visual Studio 2022, something 17.3 or whatever it's called, is available natively on ARM. So of course, I had to install this and try it. I started this process yesterday in the afternoon. I am not joking when I say I just completed it right before this call started. Now, granted, I slept. I didn't. It wasn't sitting there doing stuff overnight per se. But the thing is, this machine. I only have one Windows and ARM machine. It is in many ways everything that Windows and ARM is. It's beautiful. It might have the single greatest typing experience I've ever had on a laptop. I love it. The form factor is kind of fun. It's a unique take. Well, not unique anymore because Microsoft copied it with the laptop, Studio laptop there. But unique form factor. It is the slowest freaking thing on the planet, and it's like a Ferrari that has like a 3-cylinder Pinto engine in it or something. Like it's crazy. So because it's on the Insider Preview, the first thing I decided to do, I might not have had to have done this, but I just want to get it up to date. I actually, from time to time, I'll open it, charge it, update to the latest build. Not much is going on here, so there's not much to do with it. But I did do that. I started that yesterday. We had to go to a baseball game at like 7 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, it was 6:30. We left. This thing, 2.5 hours it went, and it never got the build installed. The first time it rebooted, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, great, it happened. And then it rebooted back to the desktop like within 10 minutes, and I'm like, that wasn't enough time. And it never even installed the build. It just rebooted, and I'm like, what? So then I had to start the thing over again. We had to leave for the game. I couldn't get it done. So when I got home last night at 10 o'clock or whatever, I checked on it and hit reboot to do that part of the install. So I left it somewhere overnight. I got up in the morning and I went to install Visual Studio, blah, 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 preview, whatever it's called. For people who don't understand Visual Studio, there's the different workloads you can install. There's many of them, and then there's like all these like additional components. And I typically install 3-ish components. Off the top of my head, it's like .NET Desktop Development, UWP, and the native whatever the C++ thing is called. Eventually, I will start installing Maui as well. Right now, you need a preview version of Visual Studio to do Maui. So depending on the computer, like I might also install that. The typical install I do of the 3 workloads is somewhere between 16 and 18 gigabytes. And from beginning to end, like download it from the web to I am literally looking at Visual Studio. That entire process of downloading that 17-ish gigabytes of stuff and blasting it onto the PC, signing into my Microsoft account, et cetera, it takes about 30 minutes. So this thing, I actually just checked this because I'm like, this can't be right. This thing took 1 hour and 17 minutes to install 3 workloads. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's like 3 times slower. But I took screenshots along the way. And I was thinking, in my head, I'm like, I think it said 16 point something gigabytes. So it's about the same size. Like it's about 3 times slower. I looked at the screen. I got to look at it again. I still can't believe this is true. It was 1.6 gigabytes of stuff because this is 3 reduced workloads. It's not, you're not getting the whole. This was 30 times slower. Like, and by the way, that's not including the download sign in part in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's just from the moment the screen comes up and says, these are the work. Let me just look. I can't. Yeah. 1.69 gigabytes. I installed all of them. I mean, one's ASP.NET and web development, which I don't really do. .NET desktop development, which is Windows Forms, WPF, and desktop development with C++ is the name of that thing. Classic Win32 API development. 1.69 gigabytes. I walked the dog. That, as you know, takes about 30 minutes. I started it before that. So I had started it. I did this before I did anything. I made coffee, got this going, read the paper, got ready to go out, walked the dog, came back, and this thing still wasn't done downloading. I was like, this can't be right. It took this an hour and 17 minutes to download and install 1.69 gigabytes. A normal, I'm talking about a laptop, nothing special, like whatever, it doesn't matter what laptop. 30 minutes for about 17 gigabytes download install on Intel. That's the difference. So like, I get it. Like it's the future, blah, 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 whatever. I'll write this up. Are you not kidding me?
No.
Are you kidding me? It's not half as fast is my point. Like it's not 50%, right? What's 1/30th? It's like 3% or whatever the number is. I don't know. Is that right? I don't know. I'm not good at stuff like that, but slow. Yes. Beautiful computer though, if you like to look at stuff and not use it.